You turn a handle, water appears, and you drink it without a second thought. But remove the tap, remove the bottle, remove the filter. Now imagine you are an ancient human, far from home, thirsty enough that your mouth feels like sand. Ahead of you is a brown pool of water. Animals have been standing in it. Insects are crawling across it. And you have one question. Do you drink? For ancient humans, water was never just water. It could be the difference between reaching the next valley and becoming too weak to move. There were no warning labels, no laboratory tests, no way to see the invisible things that can make people ill. So how did ancient humans drink water without getting sick? The honest answer is, sometimes they didn't. People in the past got sick. They faced parasites, contaminated water, and harsh dehydration just like every other living thing. But humans had one enormous advantage. They learned the landscape. A modern person sees a dry plain. An experienced forager sees a map. They notice a strip of greener plants running through the valley. They notice animal tracks narrowing into the same shallow path. They see birds arriving in the morning and leaving again at dusk. None of those signs is magic. None guarantees safe water. But together, over hundreds of journeys, they can point toward a spring, a river channel, or a seasonal waterhole. That knowledge was not written in a book, it lived in people. Someone remembered which valley still held water late in the dry season. Someone remembered which spring tasted strange after heavy rain. Someone remembered the route that reached a reliable stream before nightfall. This is why getting lost was so dangerous. It was not only about being unable to find your camp. It meant being cut off from the tribe's mental map of water. But finding water was only the beginning. A clear stream can look safe and still carry things the eye cannot see. A muddy pool can be full of visible warning signs, but appearance alone was never a perfect test. Ancient humans did not know about microbes. What they had was experience. Where water lasted, where animals gathered, where a source smelled foul, and where drinking had made people sick before. That is why water knowledge was survival knowledge, and it was shared knowledge. A child did not need to discover every dangerous pool by becoming ill. Older people could point to a bend in the river and say, "Not there." They could teach a route, a season, a spring, a place where the water came from the ground instead of sitting in the open. For mobile groups, that memory was a kind of technology. It also helped that ancient people were not living in modern cities. Hunter-gatherer groups usually moved often. They did not remain for generations beside one crowded water source. Mobility did not make disease disappear, but it could reduce the problem of staying next to the same waste, the same stagnant pool, and the same contaminated camp year after year. Then there was the first great breakthrough in human survival: fire. We usually picture fire as warmth against the night, light against predators, or a way to cook meat. But fire could also transform water. Today, we know that boiling kills many of the germs that can make water unsafe to drink. Ancient people did not know the word germ. They did not need to. If water heated with fire made fewer people sick, the result itself was enough to remember. But there was a problem. For most of human history, there were no metal pots, no kettles. In many places, there was not even pottery. So, how do you heat water when you have fire but no pan? You do not put the water into the fire. You put the fire into the water. Archaeologists have found a remarkable clue at a late Paleolithic site in northern China. Stones cracked in a pattern consistent with being heated intensely and then plunged into water. The technique is called stone boiling. A group could heat stones in a fire, then drop them into water held in a suitable container or lined pit. The rocks carried heat from the flames into the water. One stone cooled, another went in, then another. It was slow. It was dangerous. It took fuel, time, and teamwork. But it meant that fire could do more than keep a camp warm. It could make a hard choice less dangerous. And that changes the entire story of survival. But fire was not a universal answer. The history of fire is long and complicated. Different human groups, in different places and at different times, had different access to it and different ways of controlling it. A flame could go out in rain, fuel could be scarce, the right stones could be hard to find, and boiling helps with living germs, not every chemical or toxin that might be in water. There was no ancient trick that made every source safe. There was only risk management. Imagine a group moving across a dry landscape. The sun is dropping. Their water is gone. A child is tired. The tracks of antelope lead toward a depression in the ground, where a small pool reflects the last light of day. The group has choices, but none of them are easy. Drink immediately and risk illness. Wait and risk dehydration. Search for moving water before darkness comes. Or make camp, build a fire, and spend precious time turning a dangerous source into a less dangerous one. This is what life was like before the tap. Every drink could become a decision, and if one person got seriously sick, the risk did not stay with that person. Someone had to gather food for them, someone had to slow down, someone had to protect them when they could not walk. A group that understood its water sources protected everyone in it. That is one reason cooperation was so powerful. Human survival was never only about being the strongest individual. It was about being part of a group that could remember, share, and adapt. The best information was not a weapon or a tool you could hold in your hand. It was a story. Do not drink from that pool after the rains. Follow this river until the rocks turn red. Camp near that spring when the grass is dry. Those instructions could be carried across generations without a single written word. Over thousands of years, the stakes changed. As some communities became more settled, reliable water became even more valuable. A river could support crops. A spring could support homes. A lake could support an entire village. But staying near water created a new danger. When people move often, they leave much of their waste behind. When people stay, waste, animals, and drinking water can end up much closer together. The same water source that makes a settlement possible can also spread illness when it becomes contaminated. This is the strange trade-off at the center of human history. Water allowed people to grow food, build towns, and create civilization. Water also carried the invisible dangers that cities had to learn, painfully, to control. It took thousands of years before people understood why clean-looking water could still make an entire community ill. Modern sanitation, protected water systems, and treatment plants are not boring pieces of infrastructure. They are the final chapter of an ancient problem. So the next time you twist a tap, pause for a second. The water in your glass looks ordinary because millions of people have spent generations making it ordinary. Before pipes, before filters, before anyone knew what a bacterium was, ancient humans survived by watching the land more carefully than most of us ever have to. They learned which roads held water. They passed down seasonal knowledge. In some places, they used fire and heated stones to manage risk. And when that failed, they relied on something even older than technology: each other. They did not defeat dangerous water. They learned how to live with it. And that may be one of the most human things we have ever done.